Hello, everyone, and welcome to our workshop on effective paragraph writing presented by the SFU Student Learning Commons. My name is Mackenzie, and I'll be guiding you through this workshop today. Before we get started, however, I would like to take the time to acknowledge that I work, live, and play on the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam peoples, and the SLC also operates on these ancestral lands. So, what will we be talking about today? We will start by discussing how to develop effective paragraphs, starting with some information on connecting sentences, what they are, and how to use them effectively. We will then cover the use of topic sentences to set up your paragraphs, and we'll continue on to discuss different paragraph patterns you may want to use in your work. After this, we will move on to discuss how to best integrate our sources. We will start by covering the ICE strategy, which stands for Introduce, Cite, and Explain. And we will then discuss how to figure out when it is necessary to cite information. We will then conclude by discussing the difference between using direct quotes and paraphrasing, as well as when it is appropriate to use these strategies. To start, you will want your paragraphs to have a sense of flow, both within the paragraphs themselves and from paragraph to paragraph. A sense of flow is typically achieved when readers, 1, see the topics of individual sentences, and 2, see how the topics in a whole passage represent a related set of concepts. What this means is that you want your sentences to clearly relate to one another, and you want your reader to be able to easily identify these relationships. If there is no sense of flow in your paragraph, it'll be difficult for your reader to understand what information is important or what the overall message of your paragraph is. However, having a clear sense of flow will help clarify this and bring a sense of unity to your paragraph. To start your paragraph, you'll want to build connections between your sentences. The first step in accomplishing this is to open your sentence with information that is familiar to your readers. So this can either be information you presented in a previous sentence, or information that they can relate to other information, such as some form of common knowledge. Once you've begun your sentence with some sort of familiar piece of information, you can then think about how you wish to end your sentence. Typically, you'll want to end your sentence with information that is new to your reader. So use this as an opportunity to expand your discussion, taking it further or making it more complex. Starting a sentence with familiar information and ending with new information is known as the given new contract, and it's a great strategy to ensure cohesion. Here's an example of the given new contract in action. I'll read it out loud for you. Here, the author says, "You might also be wondering why I keep saying Indigenous peoples instead of Indigenous people. After all, isn't people already plural? Many epic non-physical battles were fought for the inclusion of that S on the end of people, and I'm going to honor the sweat and tears that put it there. It speaks to the incredible diversity of Indigenous peoples as hundreds of culturally and linguistically distinct groups, rather than one homogeneous group." As we read through this paragraph, what do you notice about how the author connects her ideas? Where does she start? Where does she end up? How is the given new contract applied here? If you'd like, you can now pause this video to ponder these questions. When working with the given new contract, it's important that the given new element of each sentence tie together to create a sense of unity within a whole paragraph. It may be helpful to think of this process as creating a topic thread, something brightly colored and visible to your reader. To determine how effectively you are tying together ideas in your own paper, try reviewing a draft of your paper. In a draft of your paper, try highlighting all clear and direct references to your thesis with the same color. You should be able to see that the color weaving its way throughout your paper. If you don't, it's time to make some revisions. Now, let's move on to topic sentences. So to continue with the crafting metaphors we've been using here, the topic sentence is like the glue that holds the paragraph together and also sticks the paragraph to the thesis. So a unified paragraph begins with a topic sentence that either makes a claim or presents an idea that is then reflected in the rest of the paragraph. The body of the paragraph then expands on this claim or idea, explaining why it is true, presenting evidence to support it, or further developing the idea or claim in greater depth. A strong paragraph starts with a strong topic sentence. So when you're writing your draft, be sure to take the time to develop clear topic sentences, as this will really help you develop the rest of your paragraph. When working on paragraphs, it's also important to ensure that there's a logical pattern to your paragraph. There are plenty of different types of logical patterns you can use in your paragraph, but these are just a few. You can go from general to particular, where you start by presenting general information or claims on a topic and get more specific throughout your paragraph, or you can go in the opposite direction from particular to general. You can also begin with a whole idea and break it into its parts, or you can start with a question and then attempt to answer this question as you continue through your paragraph. Similarly, you can start by stating an effect, then explaining what caused this, or you can present your paragraph in chronological order in a sort of narrative form. You can also organize your paper in a way that allows you to discuss similarities and differences of two or more items or ideas, or you can craft your paragraph around the physical description or space of an item. These are all ways you can ensure your paragraphs are organized and follow logical patterns. Now we are going to do a quick exercise. So I'm going to read this paragraph out loud to you, and I want you to think about why this paragraph works, what logical pattern exists, and what are some strategies the author has used to ensure their paragraph works. So in the paragraph, the author states that physical activity is good for people. It contributes greatly to a person's physical and mental well-being. The schedules of varsity teams are very demanding. The swim team has 11 practices a week, of which 8 are mandatory. The workouts, consisting of approximately 4,000 meters each, and also including running, weight training, and flexibility exercises, keeps a person in good physical shape and also increases mental awareness. You are active before class begins, so you are alert and awake. Now that we've read this paragraph, what logical pattern do you notice here? What has this author done to ensure their paragraph works? You can now pause the video to take some time to think about these questions. Now we're going to move on to discuss integrating sources, starting with the ICE model. Here, ICE stands for introduce, cite, and explain. Introduce means you're introducing a topic, claim, or idea, and setting your paragraph up so that you can then incorporate external information and a citation. The next step is to cite. So here you pull information, either paraphrased or quoted directly from an external source to support or expand upon your claim or idea. The last step here is to explain. So here you are elaborating on the information that you've cited, perhaps by clarifying its relevance, discussing what it proves, or situating it in the context of your paragraph or your argument. Now let's take a look at the ICE model in action. So you can pause the video now to read this paragraph. Now that you've read the paragraph, here you can see that the author begins by introducing the topic and the question. They then go on to present information from an external source that expands on this topic and helps provide an answer to their question. After this, they continue on to explain the relevance of the information they cited, what it shows, and how it helps you arrive at some sort of conclusion here. When reviewing your own draft in the future, it may be helpful to look through each of your paragraphs to try to identify the parts in which you introduce, cite, and explain. If you find that some of these parts are missing, this is a great chance to revise your paper and make sure all of these parts are present. One question a lot of students have is, what do I have to cite and when? So this can be a tricky thing to figure out, but generally it's recommended that you cite one, anything that's not common knowledge or that an average person would not be expected to know, and 2, any work or idea that is not your own original work or idea. So for example, a research finding or an opinion or theory about a debate. If you are ever in doubt of whether something needs to be cited or not, you may want to cite it anyways, just to be safe. It's usually safer to cite too often than not enough, so don't be afraid to cite quite frequently. Additionally, if something is cited in your paper, remember that it must also be included in your reference list or bibliography or works cited list at the end of your paper. And on a final note, you may at times ask yourself, what is common knowledge and how do we know if it is common knowledge? An important tip here to help you determine this is that if you had to look it up somewhere, it should probably be cited because it's probably not common knowledge. Now, there are 2 main types of in-text citations, integral and non-integral. Beginning with integral citations, here the author's name serves a grammatical function in the sentence, and therefore the author's name appears outside of the brackets, while the year of publication is either contained within the brackets or in the sentence itself. For example, see the sentence stating that according to Barone et al., 1997, it is part of the current agenda of social cognitive psychology to acquire a better understanding of individual differences in self-regulation. This is an example of an integral citation because the author's name is present in the sentence itself. Non-integral citations, on the other hand, see both the author's name and the year of publication appear in the brackets, with no part of the citation appearing in the actual text of your paper. For an example of this, see the sentence stating that there are 4 broad categories of issues that affect commitment: personal characteristics, role-related characteristics, structural characteristics, and work experience. So here you can see that the whole citation, including the author's name and the year of publication, appear in the brackets, and therefore this is a non-integral citation. So you may be wondering if it matters which type of citation you use in your paper. While it is mostly up to your preference and style, it can often be useful to use an integral citation the first time you introduce an author or a work, to ensure that you are introducing the author or work clearly and effectively, and then you can use non-integral citations after this. People usually do not read parenthetical citations, these being non-integral citations, and that's actually why they exist, to include the information without distracting the reader. So if you need to really clarify who's saying what, you really should consider using an integral citation. Now, to get an idea of what is or is not plagiarism, let's take a look at these 3 scenarios together. I'll read each scenario, and I want you to decide if it is plagiarism or not. The first scenario is that you find a neat idea in an article, so you use it in your paper. You don't bother to cite the source of the idea because you've expressed it in your own words. Is this plagiarism or not? If you said this is plagiarism, you're correct. When pulling information on any information or idea that isn't your own, it must be cited. In the second scenario, you pay a tutor for editing assistance and she drastically rewrites your original paper. You hand in this new edited version to your professor as your own. Is this plagiarism or not? Again, this is plagiarism, as you're handing in work that isn't your own as if it was your own. In our last scenario, you find a good passage in an article. You change a few words so that it's different from the original. This way you don't need quotation marks. You carefully cite the source. Is this example plagiarism? Now, this can be kind of a tricky one, but this is also plagiarism. In this scenario, it's actually an example of patch writing. So if you're going to be pulling information from a source, make sure you either directly quote it or fully paraphrase it so that only the central idea remains, not the original wording. In this case, the wording would likely be too similar to the original source, and not enough has been changed for it to be considered paraphrasing. Now, you may be wondering how exactly you might go about using direct quotations in your work. Generally, it's recommended that you paraphrase more frequently than you use direct quotations, as this will help better integrate these pieces of external information into your own writing to form a more cohesive paper. Additionally, it's also recommended that you use block quotes very, very sparingly, as many readers will skip over block quotes altogether when they are reading, so the information being presented in these quotes will not be effective. Try paraphrasing instead, as this will ensure that the reader actually reads the information you're presenting. As a guideline, try to only use quotations when 1, the language of the passage is particularly elegant, powerful, or memorable. 2, you wish to confirm the credibility of your argument by enlisting the support of an authority. 3, the passage is worthy of further analysis. Or 4, you wish to argue with someone else's point in considerable detail. You may also be wondering how to go about summarizing and paraphrasing in your work. Here, it's important to use your own sentence structure, style, and words while citing the original source. For a summary, you are looking to produce a condensed version of the main idea of your source. When paraphrasing, you're looking to get the gist of a particular message, argument, or idea so that you can integrate this into your own writing. I try to think of paraphrasing and summarizing as a four-step process. First, take some time to identify the meaning of the information you want to pull, and then pick out the key ideas. Next, restate these key ideas, changing the sentence structure and phrasing to suit your purpose and writing style. Lastly, don't forget to cite your source. Also, as a pro tip, it is very challenging to paraphrase and even summarize something that you're looking at. Try reading it, thinking about it without looking at it, and then without looking at it, explain this content and its central message to yourself in your own words. This can be a great starting point for a strong paraphrase. As some further guidance, here are some tips to help you when paraphrasing. First, avoid plugging in synonyms, especially for key terms. Really try to focus on the central meaning of the content you're trying to paraphrase. Second, do not keep the original sentence structure. Change this to your own sentence structure and style to help you get away from the structure and style of the original author. Third, change the word order. One way to do this may be to change the sentence from active to passive voice. Fourth, change numbers and percentages to different forms. So as an example, if the original work says that 55% of people prefer dogs over cats, you can change this to more than half of people prefer dogs over cats. So the meaning is maintained there, but you've changed the wording so it's your own. Fifth, think about the purpose. Why are you paraphrasing these ideas, and how will this help you convey your own argument? More importantly, how can you adjust how this information is worded to help it best support you in your own argument? And then sixth, and finally, don't forget to always cite the sources of your ideas, whether this is a paraphrase or a direct quote. As you paraphrase, there may be some key terms that you simply have to use to get the idea across. Remember that the focus with paraphrasing is on the ideas, not on the words. If you're explaining the author's ideas in your own way, you can paraphrase it effectively without having to change every word. Now, that brings us to the end of our workshop for today. I hope you found this workshop helpful, and if you require any further guidance on this topic or any other topic related to writing and learning, please reach out to us at the Student Learning Commons. We provide plenty of workshops and online resources, and we also conduct one-on-one consultations with SFU students to help you address any concerns you may have about your work. So please do reach out. With that, I will leave you. Thank you again for viewing our workshop, and we hope to see you at the SLC soon.